Hiya! Welcome to this, my 35th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, and in this installment, titled The Award Goes to... Huh? I break from my usual format to discuss the Emmys and my complete disinterest. I talk about Aaron Sorkin productions appearing in my archive along with other lesser entries. I talk Supernatural, an American Horror Story, 2 months worth of corrections, and just in time for season 3, I'm all caught up with The Good Place. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
Just a quick note on what's going on with me. Well, I'm actually finishing this up on Monday night here, and it won't get edited right away. We've got friends stopping through tomorrow, so I've got hosting duties. But I suspect by now these thoughts have found their way safely into your hair, which means that by some miracle the recording and editing actually happened, so that's a relief. It's fall here, the leaves are turning, the air is decidedly chillier. Soon and very soon my exercise routine will transition from mostly walking to mostly swimming, and the time I get to spend with other people's podcasts will wane somewhat, but my interest in them will not. I've caught up on the backlog I pulled in from the BBC Radio 4 series I mentioned last time called In Our Time Science Podcasts with Melvin Bragg, which resumed production this past week with an installment on automata. Fascinating. I'll include a direct link in my show notes. Enjoy. Correction. Error. My first correction will be to put an end to this format. In all reality, you're aware of a mistake, you correct it as soon as you can. If that's harder to track in a growing body of backlog, so be it. Even if I grab the egregious errors right away, running corrections every 10 episodes means that under the best circumstances, an error can hang out there uncorrected for 2.5 months, or even longer in some cases. There's a few I've been aware of for quite a long time now, and every time I hear them, I cringe. The main one I caught, misidentifying MJ Rodriguez as Angelica Ross in Pose, got in at episode 29, so that one absolutely got corrected right away. However, that left my misidentification of Rebecca Gayheart as the not blonde Betty Romer standing atop a skyscraper skylight in a beautiful flowing dress in the pilot episode of the Showtime production of Dead Like Me for Laura Harris as the also beautiful Daisy Adair, who did not show up before episode 6 in that series, standing uncorrected for weeks. Other corrections I'd have mentioned while I was correcting myself for misstatements in episode 24 was that the toilet seat that plummeted to Earth, killing Ellen Muth as George Lass, was from a Soviet space station, not Chinese. So many others. Also in episode 24, I talked about the inimitable Kathy Griffin playing Kellyanne Conway in the season 2 premiere of The President Show on Comedy Central. Sadly, that hour-long episode, which closed on a scene of Anthony Anamanuk as the president fleeing the FBI, was actually a special, not a second season premiere. Darn the luck. In episode 26, I talked about FX's Taboo, set in the run-up to the American Revolution. Generally a good guess, but the international trade cabal intrigue Taboo is actually set in the early 1800s. Also in episode 26, I mentioned hashtag enough in reference to gun violence, talking about the Bad Wolves remake of the Cranberries Zombie. I meant hashtag never again. In episode 27, talking about Rescue Me, I called everyone else by their character names, but said Jack McGee had a heart attack, and no, his character, Chief Jerry Riley, had a heart attack. Also in Rescue Me, Tommy's brother Johnny's ex is Angie, not Rose. Gotta check names better. Running back a bit, in episode 22, I talked about expanding a reprocessed quarter-screen image of Tin Man to 100%. I meant I stretched it 400% in order to fill my screen. A quarter screen times 4 gives you a full screen. I got the full screen on that. That's what I meant. Oh, and in episode 27 I said Bradley Whitford was in Nice Guys. He wasn't in Nice Guys. He was in Good Guys with Colin Hanks and an outrageous mustache. My bad. Drawing into corrections from more recent memory, in episode 32, my squinting modifiers inadvertently slurred actor Harry Hamlin. He is the I am certain perfectly lovely actor Harry Hamlin, playing rich actor creep Aaron Eccles. And I was so excited to see Mark Shepard in the season 3 episode of Battlestar Galactica, I forgot to actually name him. Speaking of Battlestar Galactica, talking about the final cut entry in episode 33, I said there were 5 Cylons in the final scene when there were only 4. Memory. Oy. In discussing the second season of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, I misplaced the setting, guessing they were all in the southeastern United States somewhere, learning or noticing only later that it took place in Bergsburg, Montana, which, yeah, that tracks, actually. Finally, in Preacher, Jesse called the inbred Christ clones Humperdews, not Humperdinks. My bad. Well, my bad on all of that. I got corrections here going back to March, and that's just not right. It was a thought. I think it was a bad one. From here on out, I've got a goof. Let me know. I will correct it just as soon as I'm able to. Thanks, everyone.
Friday Night Feature.
This episode feels kind of disorganized for me, and I'm having some issues here. Ralph and I took in the Applefest event in town here on Saturday, and it wore me out a bit. I zonked out the rest of the day watching a few episodes of Breaking Bad, and finally getting to watch The Girl Ghostbusters from 2016, which I absolutely loved. I mean, what the hell is wrong with people hating on Leslie Jones and Melissa McCarthy and, well, actually I kind of didn't completely get Kristen Wiig's intentions for her character, but oh my god, Kate McKinnon as Gillian Holtzman. I mean, I haven't seen a really good mad scientist since John Noble's Walter Bishop in Fringe, and she was physically and metaphysically evocative of madness. It is hard to pull focus from Melissa McCarthy when she is at the top of her game, which she was throughout, and Kate does that thing. So I think my Friday night feature is going to be the Emmys. Yeah, the Emmys. Those Emmys. The Emmys I don't watch. The Emmys I didn't watch and don't watch because, okay, look at this list of nominees. I've got American Crime Story and American Horror Story that I actually watch, Atlanta and The Americans and Saturday Night Live. It's either amazing or sad that 3 supporting actress comedy nominations are from a sketch comedy show with ratings commensurate to higher profile basic cable offerings. By the way, Killing Eve I have absolutely heard good things about, but time and attention is limited, and I'm getting a little weary of anti-hero shows. Someone's an international superstar assassin who has captured the fascination of the bureaucrat investigating her. I'm not drawing direct parallels with Catch Me If You Can, but it's in that part of the room. What I'm saying is that outside of subscription and premium services, these are not shows that are on my screen. A Handmaid's Tale, which I recently reread and loved the audiobook as well as the movie from 1990, well, I say loved, I mean I really appreciated what Atwood had written, the story she told and the way she told it. But the current series I'd have to subscribe to Hulu. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel I'd have to subscribe to Amazon.com. I'd have to get HBO to see Game of Thrones and Barry, and subscribe to Netflix for Glow, all of which every single one I've heard wonderful things. Curb Your Enthusiasm, Westworld, Silicon Valley are HBO, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, The Crown, Stranger Things are Netflix products. Good lord, I'm sure if I had Netflix I've consumed Stranger Things and Black Mirror. Are you kidding me? I mean, I've heard the critique on Black Mirror. Black Mirror technology, oh my god, so scary, am I right? But I loved The Lost Room, I loved The Twilight Zone, I already mentioned Fringe and The X-Files. I'm sure I'd get into Black Mirror. Stuff I've literally never heard of. The Tale on HBO sounds like a trip. If you like USA's The Sinner, and I do, you'll probably get into The Tale. Michelle Dockery, who I raved about in TNT's Good Behavior, nominated for Godless on Oh Hey, check it out, Netflix. Spa. Speaking of oh, hell, Lily Tomlin. Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda on Grace and Frankie. Holy hell, if I had Netflix, I'd be all over that. I love Lily Tomlin, but time and subscription, so nope. And it's not all beyond the velvet rope. I've heard awesome things about Donald Glover in Atlanta. I loved him in Community. I'm sure he is alive through this FX production. It just hasn't drawn my interest. Mom is a network comedy. I caught Better Things once in the middle of the night on FX. I love Louis Anderson, wish him all kinds of well. I've never watched an entire episode of Baskets. Hell, I'm not sure I've seen anything more than promos. Grownish was a basic cable offering I enjoyed. Spin-off from Blackish. That and This Is Us are network shows. They get lots of love, and I just haven't gotten involved. I can't tell you why. I'm not uninterested in compelling non-genre storytelling. I'm just less likely to get involved in complicated network story lives right now. These are the shows I'm watching: American Horror Story, Apocalypse, Full Frontal, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Better Call Saul, The Sinner just had its finale on USA, Supernatural on the CW, The Good Place on NBC will be starting up here shortly. The only shows nominated among those that I actually watch was Darren Criss in American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, and Sarah Paulson for American Horror Story, Cult, and Megan Mullally in Will and Grace. 3 shows. Oh, I'll watch the very occasional episode of Saturday Night Live, but just as one indication of how very occasionally that ends up being in reality, Sam Smith was announced as a musical guest on Saturday Night Live one weekend. I was going to be sure to at least watch that one, then at least DVR that one, then at least pull it up on demand, and now months later it's like, oh, who am I kidding? That's a was, and I never caught it. Oh, and The Alienist. I watched The Alienist. But yeah, that's a handful of shows from the list of maybe a few dozen nominees from the hundreds of eligible shows. What is there to grab my attention here? When I was growing up, I'd probably at least have seen all of the shows nominated. When premium cable started doing original programming like The Sopranos, it splintered our award productions. Some of our award-winning productions were placed out of reach behind a paywall. I loved that Mad Men and Breaking Bad got so much Emmy love, but as more basic and premium cable productions and subscription services like Amazon and Netflix have expanded their offerings, more of those offerings have drawn Emmy's attention, and the likelihood that I've seen, or in some cases even heard of these shows. Ozark, Netflix production, it's in its 2nd season, stars Jason Bateman. I legit heard about it the first time from a coworker a couple of weeks ago. So Emmys, seriously, like, what the hell? What are all these shows? How is something you can only watch via internet stream even eligible? I mean, sour grapes aside for the moment, I can't weigh in on shows I've never heard of. Certainly can't get too excited about them. The Emmys are going on, and I'm over here like, whatevs, man. And The Walking Dead is like this metaphor for itself, basic cable monstrosity lurching along with, I'll just make the note, no Emmy love this season at all. The Emmys used to be event viewing for me, like the Oscars or like the VMAs. This year I noticed they were on specifically because they interfered with my DVR recording of Wheel of Fortune. That was literally it.
Diving into the classic collection.
Nope, not getting into it this week. Seriously, these things take so long to write up, and I am exhausted. Most of this weekend was Apple Fest and food trucks. I'm not going into the level of detail I go into. So the fact that I caught Dana Delaney in Battlestar Galactica last time in my VHS-to-DVD collection, and they uncovered some of her backstory as a victim of domestic violence in a 4th season episode of Desperate Housewives that floated into view, I'm just going to leave that lie. It's interesting. I'm sure I could explore it in detail, maybe draw from the characters she created in Body of Proof. Maybe next time I'll feel less pressed for time. Here's the thing. I love doing this, but I've got a full-time job. As I mentioned up there, I try to get exercise regularly. I've just been fighting my body's inertia to settle into middle age, and here I've selected as a hobby the mostly sitting there viewing of DVDs and cataloging effort that culminates every couple of weeks in me guzzling coffee while cross-referencing, puzzling, connecting, and reconnecting, and even then getting it wrong often enough I need a special section for corrections. My enthusiasm for cataloging is strong. I've got more than 2,000 uncatalogued discs in my archive, and I very much want to know what's on all of them. My enthusiasm to share this info is strong. I absolutely love sharing what I found on these things with all of you, and I do feel like I've got something to say about it. But man, my antipathy for writing it all up, recording, and the nightmare of editing it, that can seriously take all of my free time for 3 or 4 days at a time, which, as I've noted in the past, ironically enough, delays actual progress on this project. So this week I'm looking at something a little shorter and hoping I can get it put together a little easier. I love my editing software. It has given me a lot more options than what I was using before, and I do hope that the audio quality has been improving for everyone. Once I get everything cut together, there is a decided sense of accomplishment, but yeah, it is sometimes a job of work. I appreciate your patience, and throughout, I'm hoping it's at least fun to listen to. So, diving back into this, a 4th episode of Aaron Sorkin's brilliant production, The West Wing, has made an appearance in my archive, this one from Season 7. I think I was motivated to record this and subsequent episodes in the wake of the announcement of John Spencer's death. I'd loved his presentation of the crusty but good-hearted chief of staff and, at this point, vice presidential candidate Leo McGarry. This one traced the development of the campaign between Jimmy Smits as Congressman Matt Santos and Ellen Alda as Senator Arnold Vinnick, and the crisis at the San Andreas nuclear power plant that Vinnick had promoted earlier in his career. I keep thinking I've got the entire series recorded from basic cable syndication. I'll certainly find out as I continue this process. For now, it was cool to see this episode come up at about the same time as the pilot episode of Sorkin's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, or rather the first half of that episode. Once I encounter that conclusion, once I do, I'll go into more detail. But the pilot opens with Judd Hirsch as a network executive having a meltdown on the air of a sketch comedy series for which no one will have any difficulty figuring out the reference, and it just... I'll be repeating this often, but Aaron Sorkin is a Goram genius, and I don't care who knows it. So, yep, something to look forward to. In the meantime, man, I could have made so much more fun of Criminal Minds this time because it came back from hiatus with the second half of that Treasure Quest storyline I outlined back in episode 30. Matthew Gray Gubler is Dr. Spencer Reed. His mother visits the behavioral analysis unit. Apparently, Dr. Reed has been writing a steady stream of letters containing just outlandishly detailed and classified personal material regarding his co-workers to his mentally ill mother in a home, and everyone is surprised it got into the hands of an insane criminal abductor, murderer, and suicide bomber, someone with a giant pumpkin head skin condition. It would have been impossible, absolutely impossible, for him to have moved unnoticed among us to engender the secret trust of anyone remotely connected to the FBI, and you can believe that would include the mentally ill mother of one of its higher-profile profilers. The writing on this was so bad that his mother was actually in the conference room when other staffers arrived, and they're talking about the ongoing case, the materials for it all over the walls, and halfway through, Reed stops to introduce his mother to them. I think all of the members of the behavioral analysis unit would have wanted to know who this little old cardigan-wearing civilian was before any of them said a single thing. And who is this? Would have been all of their very first questions. The episode was silly, the set of them together was unsupportable, and as I continue to encounter these things, I will be making so very much more fun of them. I guess familiarity breeds contempt, perhaps, or it's like I really liked Mandy Patinkin and Matthew Gray Gubler, so I put up with the show doing just any damn thing so long as they were being awesome in it. It did not merit the love, could not earn it, and in history and hindsight, it's just space on discs. Same goes for Close to Home and Numbers, which, oh wow, how did they not get sued by Juliette Lewis, Woody Harrelson, and, the estate of Rodney Dangerfield, and everyone involved with natural-born killers in their third season opener, Spree? And how would a mathematician's various theorizing in any way have helped in the solving of such obvious crimes? Oh wow, a newlywed couple is knocking over roadside cafes in outrageous and splashy ways. If only we could relate it somehow to the movement of flocks of birds, or binomial theorem, or the square of the hypotenuse, but darn the luck, all we have is decades of training and field experience as FBI investigators. I did notice something cool in this set, which tracked me past disc 550 in my classic collection, and fourth season episode of Boston Legal, which featured Christopher Rich as folksy old son-of-a-gun attorney Melvin Palmer. And
he's a hoot, that's what he is.
And more to the point, featured Stephen Root as a veteran in some legal hot water from which Candace Bergen, his partner Shirley Schmidt, seeks to extricate him. Bergen also appears as the title character in the CBS reboot of Murphy Brown, premiering this week. I can't wait to get a look at that. That was cool, but not as cool as on Dexter. Julie Benz as Reba, Dexter's girlfriend. Her ex comes back and gets abusive. She knocks him to the ground and escapes, but when I was watching this, it was after CBS picked it up and edited it from premium cable for broadcast. I hadn't connected that Reba's ex, Paul, was played by Mark Pellegrino, Jacob from Lost, and, more to the point, Lucifer's meat suit in Supernatural. This was interesting to me, not just because Dexter can't target him. There are rules, the Code of Harry. Dexter can only target serial killers who the legal system cannot control. Paul isn't a serial killer. By rights, he actually has to go after his sister's boyfriend, revealed as the ice truck killer. But also he must go after him. The Rage. I'm not sure I got as far with this series as to what actually happened next, but mostly I'm talking about it because Lucifer is dead.
Current collection.
Yep, Heading into my current direct-to-DVD recordings, I was finally able to finish the 13th season of Supernatural, and what a long, strange trip. Well, I say that, but most of it was stock writing, nothing we've not seen before, a way to write around some stuff. There were apocalypse versions of characters they wanted to bring back, like Bobby Singer, and Mary Winchester was over there. They'll need them because in the closing moments of season 13, Dean lets the Archangel Michael fulfill a long-standing prophecy of this show and possess him. The deal is he can't take over. The Michael-possessed Dean battles Lucifer with some less than epic brawling and ultimately pulls out his Archangel blade and slays Lucifer. Thus, having dispatched the Prince of Darkness, Michael decides it's adorable Dean thinks he's got any kind of say in the matter and just boots him out of the driver's seat. So, Dean's gone to hell, he's tortured and been tortured, he's returned and abandoned hunting to become a family man, he's become an actual demon, and then carried the mark of Cain, faced the darkness, and now, as season 14 resumes next month, he's an archangel. It's like, never mind demons and werewolves and vampires, bye Sam, bye Castiel, I've got important archangel stuff to do. Wouldn't he be warded? Wouldn't they pen him in with holy fire? I mean, these are not stupid men. Certainly not trusting. Generally, they plan for contingencies, like an archangel might have his wings crossed when they do the handshake on the matter of possession. I suppose we'll get to explore that pretty soon here, but yeah, it's a cool development, but I'm pretty sure they'll be working on some kind of angelectomy. In other current collection news, the 8th season of American Horror Story Apocalypse opened and confined a collection of horrible rich people, terrified servants, and healthy young idiots into, I suppose, some kind of the beautiful and the damned scenario, housed in what used to be a school for boys, sunken into the earth following a global nuclear war, which 18 months later has put them on half-starvation rations, and the inmates are starting to rebel against their wardens. This past week, a bunch of snakes infiltrated the living quarters, and I don't know what it is with Ryan Murphy's fascination with the beheading of snakes, but this is at least the second instance I've seen examples of this butchery in a Ryan Murphy production, and I'm not all rah-rah snakes over here, but that's not cool. And oh hey, the young teens pulled in for their genetic perfection, sneaking into the Overlord's chamber and reading the law on an Apple computer while snakes slithered about was about as evocative as you'd ever need to get, am I right? Well, naturally they're caught and punished for their sins of unauthorized intimacy, but the boy grabs the firearm trained on him and fires on his tormentor, Kathy Bates as a guard, and as the scene fades to black, we see her tending her gunshot wound from which thick lime green blood is spewing. How very odd. Other developments included Evan Peters, as of course he's in this. He's in everything Ryan Murphy does. I think he might live in his garage. Anyway, Evan Peters, as an upscale hairstylist, encounters a man in a rubber suit and also engages in unauthorized intimacy, only he also seems given to hallucination. His final encounter seems actually to have been with Joan Collins as his grandmother, whom he murders. What a weird show, and after a couple of seasons now of arch social commentary and an entire series of arch morality plays, it is getting a little bit played out. Yes, this is the function of horror stories in our society, to examine the problems of good and evil, but this is so distantly removed from reality. There are supernatural elements, I'm certain we will encounter them more and more, but the horror is in the situation. The entire universe is now a dozen humans and whatever else is trapped in a basement, living under a strict and enforced division of class and labor, but no one is happy. Welcome to life. Why not step away from these extreme realities? You've touched on witches, reanimation, clowns, insanity, vampires, ghosts, serial killers, aliens even. Why not explore werewolves? Season 9, if you get a Season 9, should be a nice, contained love story featuring werewolves. Not Twilight, better than Twilight. A Ryan Murphy take on werewolves, mirroring fears of stranger danger, fatal STDs, identity and trust issues. It wouldn't even have to be wolves. It could be bears, or cats, or it could be weasels. It could be wereweasels. Just no more of this, oh, how tediously fashionable everyone is, I must post about it on Instagram. Nonsensical end-of-the-world bosh.
What I've been watching.
Last weekend I watched the second season of The Good Place, which, as I suspected, spun a bit once we, the viewers, were in on the true nature of the situation. That these people are in hell, there are just the four of them, in a community billed as a heavenly afterlife community in The Good Place, but crafted by an incompetent architect, Ted Danson as Michael, and they know they don't belong there. Well, two of them mostly think they do, but are desperate to stay, despite it in fact being awful sometimes. Also, the humans are figuring it out too quickly, especially Kristen Bell as Eleanor Shellstrop, who, with William Jackson Harper as Chidi Aganye, Jamila Jamil as Tahani El Jamil, and Manny Jacinto as Jason Mendoza, or more usually Jian Yu, at first try to figure out some way to stay out of the bad place, then, as they come to realize that they're already in the bad place, leverage their tormentor, Michael, into working with them to get them into the good place, but for realsies. As part of this plan, which involves ethics lessons for Michael and, I understand from podcast interviews, something called a blood cannon right in Jackson Harper's face during an ethical exercise that dooms one guy or five guys to death via runaway train, and, oh yes, causing Janet to malfunction, the humans manage to first get Michael on their side, and then get his help as they pursue a do-over back here on Earth. As Season 2 closes, Eleanor Shellstrop, her perspective altered by a near-death experience, gets a nudge from Michael, Ted Danson uncannily as a barkeep, and travels to Australia for ethics instruction with Chidi Aganye. I'm so excited for the third season premiere this week, which I suspect will have aired by the time you're hearing this, but while you're frantically tracking it down on NBC's on-demand listings, I wanted to highlight a hilarious scene from the first season finale. In that scene, a humorless judge is reviewing her memories. He's pulled up a view screen headed Eleanor Shellstrop, date of birth October 14th, 1982, life events resulting in the largest negative point values. They did not show the point totals, but rather indicated the frequency of each offense. They include, under public events, heckling of mall Santas 9 times, movie endings ruined 32 times, the crashing and subsequent destruction of Vanessa Garcia's quinceanera, I assume that was just the once, as well as waiters screamed at 22 times, altercations with various youths selling various items for various fundraisers 85 times, salad bars sneezed on 12 times. Moving on towards dishonesty, we must not forget the lifetime ban from the Build-A-Bear workshop, stole a scarecrow from the Fall Pulleys display, such a British thing to call a pullover, put it in a passenger seat so she could use the carpool lane. Oh, if I don't say probably, these things just happened once. Got health department to give favorite restaurant a B rating so it would be less crowded. Scalped EpiPens 4 times. Roommate and dry cleaning incident, which probably should have been called the Dress Birch incident. What? It's The Good Place. There's no cursing. Moving on towards poor judgment with the Canadian spelling, I noticed. Dogs drunkenly adopted and then returned the next day twice. Lied about age to eat off a kid's menu. How is that even a thing? But never mind. Cyberbullying of a pregnant woman from spin class. Started a fire in the mailbox to get the mailman to take off his shirt, took selfie in a bathroom at a great aunt's funeral, and under private events, showed a 9-year-old child The Shining, sticking of gum in public places 224 times, strangers flipped off traffic 8 times, strangers flipped off miscellaneous locations 129 times, and brief Instagram flirtation with Kid Rock. Some of these feel like they're clearly worse than others, but it was fun pulling that up, and they were really taking a moment to examine this character we have otherwise met over the course of this season, and now over the course of 2 seasons, by that point with numerous reboots, hundreds altogether, her humanity and vulnerability contrasting with the incredibly self-involved, sometimes self-destructive bee convicted on that view screen, the one we have watched throughout trying to become a better person, one worthy of the good place. She's not perfect, but she's trying, and that's part of the charm of the series. Like I said, truly looking forward to seeing where they're taking us next. Good show, guys. And with that, thank you all so much for checking out my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes of this podcast at Apple Podcasts and iTunes at VideoFuzzy.libsyn.com or on Spotify. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites, through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing!
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.